Hi, this is Boss City Brian, and I'm here to do an album spotlight on one of the most interesting albums of the 1960s. It's the third album from the Monkees, the made for TV band that becomes a real life rock band. And this is the album that proves it. So we're going to look at a little bit of the background surrounding this album, and then we're going to dig into the individual tracks. So sit back, get ready, here we go. The year is 1967, and the Monkees have the top two albums in the country, and they have the number one single in the country, and I'm a Believer. And they are not happy. The four Monkees, Davy Jones, Micky, Dolenz, Peter Tork, Michael Nesmith, have had limited participation in the creation of these two albums, and now they're not only movie stars, but they are recording stars because their names and pictures are on these albums, and so are the lead vocals. They're upset that they have only basically been relegated to lead vocals on the first album and lead and backing vocals on the second album. As a peace offering from the record company president and the music supervisor for the series, Don Kirshner, he allowed Michael Nesmith to go into the studio and produce what ended up being an album's worth of material, and then take two songs from those sessions and put two on each album. But other than that, the Monkees had very little control on what was recorded and how it was recorded. So now they have the power, so they are battling with Don Kirshner. They do have support from their TV producers, Robert Rafelson and Bert Schneider, but Screen Gems, which is the television arm of Columbia Pictures, owns Cold Gems, which is the record label that is putting out the Monkees recordings. Cold Gems is a collaboration between Screen Gems and RCA, which owns RCA Records and also owns NBC. So there's a lot of synergy going on here. And the Monkees want more involvement. They want to be able to play on their records, specifically Tork and Nesmith, and they're exerting their control, their power to wrestle away some of Kirshner's creative, contractual power. And ultimately, it results into an ugly scene where Nesmith punches his fist through a wall of a hotel room in response to what Kirshner's lawyer had to say about, his breaching his contract by not agreeing to sing and do what he's told. So ultimately, different compromises are put forth, and while Kirshner is trying to negotiate with the Monkees, behind their backs, he's trying to basically get them fired by directly contacting the head of Columbia Pictures and losing sight of the big picture, where if he just lets them play on some of the tracks, he can continue to have them record the songs of his selection. A real good description of this time is in the writings of Andrew Sandoval, who's the Monkees archivist and historian and was the producer of some of their last tours. He wrote the liner notes for the box set Super Deluxe Monkees Headquarters, and he also has the Monkees Day by Day book, which goes into details about that time, where he was able to get transcripts of the lawsuit that eventually happened with Don Kirshner. So Don Kirshner releases a single that does not have any participation from the Monkees except for vocals, and Screen Gems fires him. And there's other issues why they were wanting to get rid of him, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Monkees are allowed to go into the studio and record an album, and Headquarters is the result. Now, this album is interesting because the members of the band had to fight for the right to be able to go in and record it, and the fact that they were 4 people who were hired to star in a TV show playing a band, now they're in the studio recording as a band. And most bands, when they get into the studio, by the time they get in the studio, they had been together for years and had molded a sound together. Here you have 4, we'll say, musicians slash actors, or actors slash musicians, and trying to find a sound that they're happy with, but that also people want to listen to. They enlist Chip Douglas, who was the bass player for the Turtles, who had, not too long before this, arranged the Turtles' big hit, Happy Together. And this is his first production. They go into the studio and find out that Micky Dolenz, who has been assigned the drummer's seat in the TV show, has about 6 months experience drumming, and was having trouble completing a whole take without flaws. So it ended up being that most of the songs had to be compiled from multiple takes, edited together. But what you get is a raw garage band with finesse and some polish. So that makes it interesting to listen to anyways. And the idea of necessity is the mother of invention applies here, because there's some very creative instrumentation on this album because of the need to overcome some of the musical limitations from the inexperience that the band has playing together. And it makes for a very, very interesting album and a good one. So let's dive into the individual tracks. So this is released in June 1967. It goes to #1 on the charts for 1 week. It's replaced by Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. And it stays at #2 for most of the summer. So this follows the #1 albums, the Monkees and more of the Monkees, and they were #1 in combination for, I believe, 36 weeks. And then another album replaces more of the Monkees for 1 week, and then Headquarters comes and is #1 for 1 week. Okay, so let's look at the individual tracks. Side 1 leaves off with You Told Me, a Michael Nesmith written and sung recording. And this song has a very innovative use of banjo. The song kicks off with a rockin' guitar, and then this banjo just appears, and I don't think there was anything else previous to this where a banjo is used in such a way in a rock record. And it's a great track to lead off, and it was featured in some of the reruns on NBC and the first season reruns. The second song on side one is I'll Spend My Life With You, which is a Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart song that was recorded by the Monkees during the Boyce and Hart sessions for the second album, but it did not make the album. So the Monkees now re-record it. And what's interesting about it is it's got some very clever use of pedal steel. And pedal steel was not typically used much in pop music. It's mainly a country and western instrument. And Michael had acquired one and was still a novice, but that's why there's such innovative use of it, because of him not having the skill to play it like it's played on country records. And even if he did, they probably wouldn't had him play it that way anyways, because this isn't a country record. But it really gives it a interesting sound. And this song features Micky playing guitar, and he's not playing drums. The percussion, all the percussion's handled by Davy on tambourine. And so that gives it kind of a 60s folkish kind of sound with a pedal steel. It's really impressive. And it is an improvement on the Boyce and Hart version, in my opinion. The third song on side one is Forget That Girl. This song is written by Chip Douglas, the producer of this album. And it was a song that he had presented to Kirshner before Kirshner was fired. And Kirshner didn't think much of it because he says, well, Forget That Girl is kind of negative, isn't it? That's what he was quoted as saying. But it's a great song. It's got great keyboards by Peter Tork, a great vocal by Davy Jones. And I really like the backing vocals, which I believe are Dolenz, Jones, Tork, and Chip Douglas. But it's a really fun pop song, and they do a really good job on it. And so for me, that's a highlight of the album. And what's interesting, in the episode of season one called One Man Shy, also known as Peter and the Debutante, the scene where there's a musical montage, I'm familiar with Forget That Girl being the music accompaniment during that scene. And that's how I remember seeing it in reruns, and then in MTV era reruns. And it seemed to fit the storyline of the script. And then come to find out, when the Blu-ray comes out and has all the original music, that sequence actually had I'm a Believer attached to it. And then you can see how it was cut to match the beat of I'm a Believer. But Forget That Girl is such a great fit to that. And whenever I see that episode, I still hear Forget That Girl. When the Monkees season one episodes were being repeated, that's when, on NBC, that's when Headquarters came out. So they had taken songs from Headquarters and edited them into those musical segments where they weren't lip syncing. So I really love Forget That Girl. Number 4 on side one is Band 6, which essentially is Micky and Mike and Peter just kind of goofing around with Mike on pedal steel, and they're trying to recreate the Looney Tunes song. And if you listen to it, it doesn't sound like Looney Tunes, but it sounds like 3 guys in the studio having fun. And so this is put on the album to kind of give a little bit of the humor of the whole Monkees project, but also it gives the 4 Monkees an opportunity to get a songwriting credit on the album. but Band 6 is fun. Number 5 is one of the best songs in the Monkees catalog. It's Michael Nesmith's You Just May Be the One. And this is a re-record of You Just May Be the One from Michael Nesmith's sessions for the first and second album. He did it originally with the Wrecking Crew. This is the Four Monkees with Michael on guitar, Peter on bass, Micky on drums, Davy on percussion, and an overdubbed bass by Chip Douglas. But it's one of Nesmith's best pop songs, and it's definitive Monkees. They rock on it. The Wrecking Crew version is good too, but this one really rocks, and this is, the Monkees. And Mike's vocals great, Micky's harmonies. There's background vocals from Davy and Peter, and it's just the Monkees at their best in the studio. So I love that song. And when I got this album, when I was about 11, because I'd gotten all the other albums as they came out as a kid, my parents would buy them. They usually would have an album come out, 2 albums come out a year, and I'd get one for my birthday or Easter, and then one at Christmas. This year, 1967, they released an extra album, which was Headquarters, which incidentally didn't have any singles released from it. So in a way, it kind of seems like the record company kind of looked at this as a vanity project. Anyways, I knew that they had an album that I didn't have because one of the later albums came with an inner sleeve that had pictures from other Cold Gem releases, like the soundtrack to Casino Royale and The Flying Nun and all the Monkees albums. And then I would see Headquarters, and no, I didn't have it, but I didn't think, oh, Mom, I need this or whatever. I just was living my life. And 1973 comes along, and that's when the Monkees were kind of winding up their Saturday morning reruns. And I was at the swap meet with my parents, and we didn't go to swap meet very often, but somebody was selling Headquarters, the Monkees' third album, that looks like this, but it was bigger. And they were selling it for 50 cents. Bought it, brought it home, and the only song I really recognized was You May Just Be the One. Played it, and immediately thought that this sounds different. Songs like You Told Me and I'll Spend My Life With You didn't sound Monkees, but I just loved You Just May Be the One and ended up appreciating the album, but even without knowing the background, thought this is a different album. So, You Just May Be the One is my favorite song on this album. Okay, number 6 is Shades of Grey, and this is a great song by Mann and Cynthia Weil, and the Monkees do a really good job on this. Peter's on keyboards, Mike's playing pedal steel, using a clever approach to this pedal steel, making it sound like what strings would be playing. But it's not strings, it's more sad because of the whine of a pedal steel. And, the lyrics were definitely current at the time, and, somewhat appropriate now with so much division, but it's definitely a song from that time, but it still sounds great in 2024. And, there's some strings on it that were written by, the charts were written by Michael Nesmith with Peter Tork's help. And so it's a classic Monkee song. Oh, and it features lead vocals by Davy Jones and Peter Tork. And it was nice to hear Peter singing where he's not doing a novelty Auntie Griselda kind of thing. So I liked that. Number 7 is I Can't Get Her Off of My Mind. And that is track 7 on side 1, the closing song on side 1. And that is Davy Jones singing a Boyce and Hart song. And it really sounds like a peppy piano based Herman's Hermits type song. Kind of a Broadway song that that was perfect for Davy. And he sounds very Davy on this. And it's a nice inclusion on the album because this album takes the different styles of the Four Monkees and works on creating a group sound. And Davy's inclination for songs like this is a part of that. So now let's turn the record over to side 2. And the first song is For Pete's Sake, written by Peter Tork and Joey Richards. And this song also was the closing theme, or edited version of this was the closing theme to season 2 of the television series, The Monkees. And Micky does the vocals on this, but Peter plays guitar on this, and Michael plays organ. And it's a really clever use of organ on For Pete's Sake. And it's probably the best Tork composition of the stuff that was released for the Monkees. There wasn't a whole lot. I think there was only 3 songs of his that was released on the original albums. But this one is definitely the best. But the thing about Peter was not prolific as a writer, but he definitely was the outstanding musician, and he's playing multiple instruments on these tracks. And that's another thing about this album, is that it was recorded using the 4-track recording techniques, and therefore there's a lot of limitations, only using 4 tracks. The Beatles used 4 tracks on Sgt. Pepper, and for them to be able to overdub as many instruments and vocals that they do, there's some clever engineering going on here. So the next song on side 2 is Mr. Webster. This is another re-record of a Boyce and Hart song from those sessions for the second album. And this one is very creative, as it gives this song a very 60s moody feel, and very interesting. It's a story about Mr. Webster, Mr. Frisbee, and it's interesting because it's basically the storyline from an Outer Limits episode that preceded the recording of this. And so that's very interesting, including the names Mr. Frisbee and Mr. Webster. So we kind of get an idea of what Boyce and Hart were watching on television. But it has a very restrained vocal by Micky, and just some clever instrumentation. And it's a perfect song for a 60s album. Now the next song, which would be the third song on side 2, which is Sunny Girlfriend. And this is a Michael Nesmith song with a Michael Nesmith vocal that is kind of the jewel of this album, because it's showing the Monkees rocking. And it's Michael Nesmith at his best as far as writing and singing. There's great harmony vocals by Micky on this, and this was edited into some of the NBC reruns from the summer of '67, and it is one of the highlights of this album. Number 4 is, I guess you call it a spoken word comedic track called Zilch, and this is the 4 Monkees each reciting a line or a couple of lines of dialogue, that humorous things that they would say to each other, and they overlap. And so it starts off with one of them saying it over and over again, and then the next one comes up with a different thing, and it turns out to lead them into at least Michael and Micky laughing. And it's another one of those things that's on here to get a chuckle out of people, and but it's also there to give the 4 Monkees and to share another songwriting credit, because it counts as a song as far as royalties. But it's a fun thing to listen to, and it's part of what the Monkees is all about, is the 4 of them trying to make each other laugh, and that's what Zilch is all about. The 5th song on side 2 is No Time. No Time came from a jam that the musicians were doing, which would have been Micky and Peter and Mike and Chip Douglas doing some jamming on some Chuck Berry-esque chords, and like what they were doing, and they put it down, and then Mike, with help from Micky, wrote some lyrics off the top of their heads, and that birthed No Time, which is another fun song. It's not a whole lot there, but it's fun, and it shows Peter his piano playing at its best, and it's got some Chuck Berry-esque little licks, and Micky sings lead vocal on it, and Davy singing background vocals, and it sounds like it's either Davy overdubbed a lot. In any of the liner notes, they always say unknown backing vocals, but I'm not sure who those vocals belong to, but it kind of sounds like Davy overdubbed a lot. But with the 4-track recording, I'm not sure how they would have been able to overdub his voice that many times. But No Time is a fun song. The next song is one that I used to skip when I was a kid. I don't skip it now, but it's Early Morning Blues and Greens. And that one is written by Jack Keller, who wrote a song on More of the Monkees, and he produced some of the tracks on the first 2 albums. And it's a co-write between him and Diane Hildebrand, who was a lyricist for Screen Jams, and she also co-wrote Going Down with the Monkees, that was the B-side of Daydream Believer, and she also wrote the lyrics for a Peter Tork song that was not released until the 1980s. So Early Morning Blues and Greens is a really folky, atmospheric 60s song with some very wordy, moody wordplay lyrics. Very much of that time, but I like it more now than I did then. and Davy does a really good job on the vocals on that. And there's some great organ played by Peter Tork on this, and some also just the atmosphere with some of the creative percussion and the soundscape on this song is really interesting. So it's definitely part of the whole Headquarters sound. The final song on Headquarters is Randy Scousket, also known as an alternate title. This song was Micky's first song he ever wrote, and therefore it's the first song he ever wrote, and it's being 1967, where the Beatles are pushing things to the limit as far as what you could and couldn't do on a pop record. Writes this song with stream of consciousness lyrics about being in England and going to a party given by the Beatles. And there's a timpani drum being played in it, and there's a part where overlapping is Micky, I believe, singing the two verses simultaneously. I mean, it's really a very 60s sound. Now, this was a video for this was filmed before the second season started airing, and so there's episodes of Micky wearing a very 60s tablecloth as some sort of poncho thing, and playing the timpani drums. But it's definitely a Peter Tork piano-driven backing track, and it's one that will make you smile. So that song also was released in England as a single, and it reached, I think, number 2 on the charts. And Randy Scousket is evidently a phrase that is inappropriate to be the title of a pop song by a pop group being presented to the younger folk. So the record company asked for an alternate title. So Micky said his alternate title is alternate title. Therefore, that's why that song is known as alternate title in England. And in the concert that I saw of on YouTube of Micky performing that, he wears a replica of his tablecloth and gets the timpani drum and recreates the video. But no singles released from this album, and sure not why, because I do think You Just May Be the One or Forget That Girl could have been hits, but who knows. But that wraps up my album spotlight of the Monkees Headquarters. And I'd like to know what you think about the Monkees Headquarters. What's your favorite songs? What do you think about the war between Kushner and the Monkees? If you have any comments, please put them in the comments while you're liking and subscribing. And until next time, this is Bot City Brian wishing you many blessings and saying, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.